Hey everybody, we're on episode 185, Healing Your Inner Child. I'm Cherie Burton, and this is Women Seeking Wholeness, a podcast for those who long to feel, express, and be who they truly are. And as I alluded to in previous and recent podcast episodes, I'm changing the name of this podcast, soon to be revealed. I'm not telling you what it is yet. But only because we don't have to seek wholeness anymore. We are wholeness. And that is kind of what today's episode is about. Damla Aktekin is an inner child energetic wound healer, crystal healing teacher, and soul healing writer. Super cool things. And she helps others tend to all layers of their energetic needs. So we're talking about your inner self, your soul self, your inner child, and your ancestral stuff. And one thing I learned from her is that you can't just talk to yourself or talk out loud to heal your inner child or your ancestral stuff, because your ancestral inner children are living inside you as well. Many of their experiences are continuing to live through you. As you guys already know, a lot of your stuff isn't all your stuff. But because we have this sensitive, beautiful, pure inner child, it's begging to be heard, seen, and taken care of regularly. So we're going to dive into that today. We're going to talk about energetic wounds and also crystals. She has a really interesting take on crystals. If you've ever wondered why you're drawn to them or what the big deal is about them, she's going to go into what that's about and how our bodies are actually, at the DNA level, crystalline structures. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember to follow us on Instagram, cherie.burton, as well as ask to join our private Facebook group, Women Seeking Wholeness. Damla, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And you were telling me that you found my podcast and me through Anaya Sophia, and she is just so dear to me. And, had a beautiful visit with her in France earlier this year. And I always just trust that, people find each other in ways they're supposed to find each other. And after I read everything that you're about, I was just like, oh my gosh. It would be amazing to have you on.
That conversation spoke to me on so many levels. Anaya has a deep sense of wisdom, it felt to me, but also like your connection with her, your back and forth, and this sort of learning from each other and elevating each other. It was a beautiful conversation. And then we sort of found each other.
I trust when that happens, and I love how it works. And I'm starting to become more and more allowing of this process where the universe just sort of connects different souls. And it's like, sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh, there you are. Like, so you are originally from Turkey, and you have quite a story. I know you talk a lot about, tapping into the inner child and healing energetic wounds, which we're going to define, and then also using things like crystals. I know you specialize in many things, and we could go many places with you. It feels like the best place to start is for our listeners to understand why you even got into this, which typically is, for any light worker, healer, shaman, mystic, they typically have some kind of healing crisis or something that happens upon their path that takes them on a different trajectory than they were previously or thought they were going to be on. Mm-hmm. So what can you share with us about your journey?
Yes. I think I tell it differently each time. It just comes out differently, my story, depending on what's needed by the listener and by this moment. Yeah. And sometimes depending on how I need to rehear it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say what I just told to a cousin of mine, and she's expecting a baby. And I told her, prepare to die and be reborn. And that's exactly what happened to me through the birth of my child. And at the time, what I didn't realize was I was coming in empty to an experience that was going to decimate me, to pulverize me, to reform me in new ways. And there are ways you can go through that kind of experience. That for me, that was the birth of my child, but for someone else, it could be something else. You could be well resourced going into these things if you know what's about to hit you, the tsunami. I didn't. I had a very romantic idea of my baby being born, and she came in through an emergency C-section instead. And it wasn't even that. I hadn't realized that I had immense energetic wounds that I hadn't even touched upon, that I hadn't even realized that I had. And some of them have to do with migration. My ancestors have migrated from Europe and Asia to Turkey. Some of that has to do with physical, emotional trauma. And I define now energetic wounds as anything that may have left a mark on you that is not life affirming or life supporting. And these marks stay physically in you as well as in your energy field. And that's why I call them energetic wounds. So long story short, when I came into the birth experience, I actually was a yoga teacher. I had transferred from what I called mind-based existence as an engineer. And later I had my MBA. I was in the corporate world as a consultant. So I was very much existing in my head. And the next few years, when I switched to being a yoga teacher, I was existing in my body. I realized I wasn't just my head, I had a body. Mm. And then as my birth hit, I realized that neither of them were going to support me through my journey. I needed to redefine everything, relook at everything, reorganize everything. And that led me to realizing the vibrational essence of things, that led me to crystals, that led me to EFT tapping, to energy healing, to a lot of different things, but the essence of them being vibrational healing. And as I dove into this realm of energetics, suddenly things opened up for me. Suddenly, I wasn't just a three-dimensional mess. I could, yeah, I know, but that's what we're taught, right?
Yeah,
that's what we're programmed in a way. And I came to understand more and more that that's not so. There's so much more there. There's an immense level of knowledge in the body and in the energetics of how you relate to your body, and your body also holds your not just your wounds, but the potentials of all your inner children. I'm going to stop there.
I like inner children. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you talked about yoga being sort of this catalyst of kind of awakening you. I would say that I took a yoga teacher training with my daughter in 2018. Not to become a yoga teacher, just to do it because she wants to be a yoga teacher. Anyway, kind of rocked my world. I did not understand the power of embodiment. Like you said, we've been taught that the rest of the body is there to carry the head around, and we get in our heads. And I find it so interesting that you were in this sort of like masculine corporate, engineer, left brain kind of world. Because that's what, for some of us, especially I think some women who want to have abundance or success, we think that is the path, is to sort of conform to that no, I want to say it's not all toxic, but that toxic masculine sort of paradigm, and we forget to become embodied. So, yeah.
I think at the time, I didn't know what was available to me. I didn't know that there could be another path. And like going along with what you're saying, yes, there was definitely, I migrated to Europe, and then I migrated to the US from where I was born in Turkey. So there's definitely a masculine element of go, go, go in that. And then the vibrational realm, definitely, it opens you up to a different level of understanding, even the masculine side. And I think for me, they're not too different from each other in the sense that like whatever we do, so whatever we are, what we choose to be is, to me, sort of that feminine aspect, and whatever we do also has energetics in it, like how you do it and where that reaches. So it becomes this beautiful dance when you're open to both of those things rather than just try to exist in just the one.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't mean to undermine people who are in those fields of it, like engineering and the corporate world and things like that. What I'm seeing, and I'm sure you are too now, is just sort of this switch from, if I am going to play in that space, I better get in my body because I can be more effective and more successful, even though that inner feminine has not been honored in those spaces. I can bring a different twist to this, if you will, or a different innovation into that space because I'm now in my body rather than just existing in my head. But did you exit that? Did you leave the corporate space and do something different once you kind of woke up to, living in your body and not just your head?
Yeah. The corporate world, for me, I understand what you're saying. And I see those, I've met a couple of those people who would come in. My issue was always like, what's the meaning in this? Like, we're going into this meeting, we're changing a technical system that might, may or may not benefit the client. But what's the deeper meaning? What are we really like? Even then, I think I was looking for something deeper and more encompassing. But I've met a lot of people who would come into it with an attitude of, or with an intention of, just let me be of service. And that's what I've began to do in the last few years of my involvement there. Just holding the intention. I don't see the meaning in this, but let me be of service in any way, just even through my being there.
Just your presence.
Yeah. So that's what you're describing as the embodiment, I think.
Yes.
But to me, it just wasn't, it wasn't creative enough. I wasn't reaching into the depths and the heights that I knew I wanted to go into.
Yeah. So you started understanding vibrational medicine, and let's talk about energetic wounding. So there's a couple of bombs you dropped. You talk about energetic wounds and then inner children. I mean, you hear a lot about the inner child, but I know there's more to that. So let's actually start with the energetic wounding, which does happen in childhood, which actually happens even before birth, right? We're talking about ancestral trauma.
Yes. So the energetic, if we understand, or if I go into a little bit of what I see the body as, we're gonna go through it a little easier. And that's my favorite question to ask people, like, what is the body? What do you think the body is? And my answer to that is the body is this microcosm of the macrocosmos. It's this beauty, mystery. It holds a lot in it. And I see it as a conscious, evolving, changing, communicating beingness. So within that, when something that's not life affirming hits you, the body takes a certain stand. The body says, I'm going to put a little bit of a tightness around your shoulders because we need to protect your heart. Or the body says, let's put this lump in your throat for all the things you weren't able to say. And then what I came to discover through working with clients, and as well as working on my own body and in my own body, is within that lump in your throat also lives an inner child that is the pure potential of you actually shining your light and you saying those words. So I don't, in my work, I don't see inner children as wounded. To me, the inner children are your quantum potentials of every single moment that you have lived here in this lifetime. Yeah, and if it's in your belief system in other lifetimes, as well as the inner children, the potentials of the inner children of your ancestors. So if you look at it that way, we can go into the body and speak, if we can go into the body and speak the language of the inner child, more often than that, coming back to that lump, the inner child, the body, which is the collective inner children, might show you this big rock in your throat. And then usually when I ask, who is in that rock, people tell me, I see my 4-year-old self, 5-year-old self, I see my 16-year-old self, whatever age comes up. Sometimes the person might say, like, there is no age to this, this is ancient. So that tells me that this is intergenerational. There's more to it. And then if we ask that 4-year-old or 5-year-old or however, the inner child decides to show up that day, if we ask them what they need, they again have this special magical childlike language of showing you with pictures, sometimes with sounds and with colors.
Okay, I want to put you on pause for a second, because in my mind, I think when we receive messages, it can come from a lot of different places, but you're saying, like, because I think like your higher self, which is like your cosmic self, which is like as like at one with God in my belief and many others. And then, but the inner child, is the inner child trying to just get attention, or is the inner child just so innocent? James, like how intelligent is, because I think very primal. When I think inner child, I think she's sad, she's lost, she's hurt, she's happy, she plays, and you're shaking your head. So define kind of like what is the difference between like an inner child giving you messages through the body and maybe your advanced soul self or your higher self?
Inner child is an expression of your soul self at a particular point in time. Got it. So, and it holds a symbolic meaning to you. So the 5-year-old you holds a symbolic meaning to you. The 16-year-old you holds a different symbolic meaning, depending on what you're going through now. So it's simply a way for you to connect with your soul through the lens of your different selves.
So is it kind of like a frozen moment in time where something disconnected or some need didn't get met or something, and this is just locked in? Is that kind of part of it?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, coming back to the body being a changing, evolving cosmos. Nothing is frozen permanently. There may have been a protection that was put in place around that potential, but it is possible to move through that and understand why it was put there in the first place, and then to give a different role to the inner child so they can still feel like they're part of your ecosystem, but they don't have to give you pain or weight or numbness or discomfort, to let you know there's something here that you need to look at.
That's so interesting. I was listening to this audiobook that I can't remember the name of just a few days ago. And she was talking about how she was kind of going through a spiritual awakening, and she decided that she was just going to stay super high vibe. So she stopped watching movies and listening to music and media and the whole thing. And she just tried to stay really lined up with spiritual things, really. I mean, even though everything is spiritual, but she was saying how she all of a sudden just started crying uncontrollably. And so she went in, she did her thing and went into meditation. And in her mind's eye, she saw this cute little girl just crying and crying and crying. And as she lifted her chin up, she saw it was her, and it was her little girl. It was her inner child. And she was probably 5 or 6 years old. And she was saying, "You're not listening to me. You don't love me anymore. You're not paying attention to me." So what had happened was, as she put it together, is she was trying to stay so high vibe. And so, she was literally like bypassing her humanness, and her inner child was saying, "Let's play, let's be human, let's explore the world." Like, she was just, you know what I mean? She was kind of like disassociating from her true, authentic, divine child, her inner self?
I mean, if you think about it, your body is sort of this collaboration between the matter and the soul. So I would ask that person's inner child that was coming forth so strongly. So acknowledging, of course, that they weren't feeling heard, but then asking, like, how would you like to be heard? Mm-hmm. How would you like me to connect with you? And how can I know that when I'm missing what you have to say, rather than her coming in like we're gonna cry this frustration and the sadness.
Yeah. Like there's other ways to get attention, right?
Yeah, like allowing that the body soul connection to get in touch with you in different ways, and then saying, okay, how can I meet your needs? How can I be and not even ally is the word I'm looking for. I'm looking for describing this ongoing conversation, ongoing connection, and partnership with all parts of you.
Mm. Yeah, and I love that. And I think we were not programmed to do that. I think we were programmed to basically just love, light, peace, joy, and all the shadows, all the shadow aspects of ourselves, to bypass over them, just like that little girl. Like she was bypassing over that little girl who just literally wanted to be seen and heard, as you mentioned. I think the trap is, staying in a quote high vibe state, when if you look at a child, they already are high vibration. It's just manifesting very differently than a high vibration, articulate, I guess we need to define high vibration, but our wounds start speaking before our actions and words.
I think, when I say vibrational essence of us, I think I want to clarify, I don't mean like you have to be what's quote unquote high vibe.
Yeah. What is that even, right? Like,
yeah. Versus I think about the path of Inanna, the Sumerian goddess, going down to the underworld, to me is underneath the skin, to the flesh. I think about Persephone, the Greek goddess, who also went underneath. And underneath means in all the different frequency vibrations of you, that is your body and your energy field around you, there are things to be experienced, things to be noticed, things to be appreciated, and things to how should I put it? Things to live through. And underneath, there's a little bit less light, and some corners are dark. Some, the sights and sounds, the light isn't as bright. But even within that, there's some joy to be had. So there is some exploration to be had. So it becomes a journey of, like the goddess Inanna, you go one layer down, you discover a few things, and then you feel safe there, and then you go down another layer and another layer and another layer.
Isn't there like 7 gates in the descent journey of Inanna?
You heard like the 7 chakras, but then there's also, if at certain points you feel like it's too much, you get help, you get support, or you take a break and then you come back, and then sometimes you're pulled to another layer that you thought you had mastered. And life is like, here, go back.
Lest you think you got this down, girl, here comes another thing.
So it's the project to me, if we are looking for a project, isn't so much as let's be love and light all the time versus okay, let me dive in, rather than rise up. Let's go in. And within that, try to let's discover this new cave that we haven't looked at. Oh, look at the colors of this. There's some water here, the reflection of light. It's beautiful. There's a mirror here. And then you discover another room filled with all these ancient objects. So I think of it as an exploration, and not as, yes, you might encounter this room that's like messy and maybe smelly or whatever, but if you move through this with gratitude, like this is part of this that I'm in, with gratitude, and say, how can I be with this? What does this room need? Maybe a little more light, maybe a little bit, I don't know, Clorox.
It's like sanitize. You do teach the value of gratitude as a practice of love, finding it in every season and every cycle of your life. And you mentioned the goddess Persephone. I love all that mythology with Demeter and all of that stuff. So, and you just barely mentioned this value of gratitude. How does that really get into those energetic wounds? Like, what is that process? How do you allow that? Because I know when I go into some shadow aspects, I actually go into a state of apathy where I don't want to do the things. Like, I don't want to send gratitude. I don't want to pull out my, tools. Sometimes I wallow, and I recognize, I logically have the thought, give gratitude. And for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't care right now. I just want to feel this way.
So as I was thinking about gratitude, I had to sort of go into it a little deeper and in my own way, like the goddess Persephone and like Inanna going into the depths. And to me, I realized, first of all, going into the word grateful, and great in yoga means maha. Maha is one of the sounds for the heart chakra.
Oh.
So grateful, heartful. So how do we get our heart full? So to me, it's a way of looking for love. And sometimes we have these places in us where love was twisted through the wounding of our caregivers, through the situation that we were in. And then it's your job to say, okay, that happened. But as that happened, like I had floor underneath my feet. I was sleeping in a bed. Or as that happened, like life was happening to me, and there were moments that I laughed. Mm-hmm. So not to say like these were like laugh out loud, like super joyful moments, but there were elements of light and slivers of love, even in that horrible situation. Mm. And then coming back out of that situation, to me, what I'd like to think about is how can I bring a care and a tenderness to my container so that there is room enough for me to fill that heart space with that sort of expandedness. And it's almost like you need to expand what you're seeing. You need to expand what you're hearing, smelling, and all the other senses. And you need to say, okay, as a body living in this realm at this time that chose to be in, which is incredibly difficult. And it feels to me it gets more difficult by the minute. As a body moving through this, how can I be such a container of love that it fills me and then it begins to overflow?
As you're saying that, I'm thinking of I am a very visual person. So I was just picturing my heart opening up like the top of it, and then just sending symbols and thoughts and things that I have in front of me, and just like filling it. I love the association with grateful, heartful. I didn't realize the root word of great was, what is it? Ma?
Maha
Maha.
is one of the mantras for the heart.
For me personally, visualization is really powerful because I have to see it. I have to somehow to land it in my body for whatever reason. It just feels like I need symbols and indicators to open up the energy for me so I can actually work with the energy. I have to, in my mind's eye, have visuals or, it has to have some kind of a form. I know a lot of people who work with different feelings and energies, and they just can do it that way. For whatever reason, the way that I'm wired, if I really want it to land, I have, at least right now where I'm at, not that I can't have visceral feelings, but I place a meaning or an image to it. I place an image and meaning together, and then the feeling is expanded from there. So I was just opening my heart up while you were saying that. I'm like, let's feel it. Okay, outside I see the mountains, I see all the things. And also I was like, well, deeper than that, what am I really grateful for? And you voiced it. I'm almost getting to the point in my life where I'm grateful that I'm in such a difficult sphere. I'm grateful that I'm walking the path of this really epic historical time on the earth when everything is shifting, all these polarities, right? I think that when I'm in a shadow state, I think that is the highest way for me to integrate, is to be like, oh, and I signed up for this, right? I want to feel this. My old way would have just been like, everything's great. So can we still open our heart and feel the good things while also honoring this is really hard, what I'm walking through?
Yeah. I think what you're speaking to is also, you were telling me earlier, we all have energetic wounds. I haven't yet met a person who does not
wounded. Yeah.
Yeah, even as babies, we're taking on some of our ancestors and the past lives, parallel future lives. But it's a bit okay, this moment in time, I'm here, and whatever happened has brought me here. And in this moment, how can I be with this container with tenderness, with love? And that love to me is in everything you do and everything you are. Everything you do, from how you load the dishwasher to how you speak to your kids and to your pets, to your plants, how you, I don't know, there's probably something that you're annoyed with, like how you open that stuck door. Can you show a little bit more tenderness as you're doing that? And to me, that says a lot about what's happening in you and how you are handling what's happened to you and what's happening in you. So bringing that kind of awareness and that level of, let me hold this cup with a little bit more tenderness. Also knowing this cup holds water and I'm water and we're both crystals. And this table, the floors that I'm, stepping on, they're wood, they have DNA, and hence they have crystalline structures. So we're kin, we're relatives, and we are made up of crystals.
Yeah, let's go talk about crystals for a sec. I share with people that sometimes things call you. For some people, crystals don't hold any weight. It's just not on their radar. And that was me for a long time. And then at one point in my life, people were talking about them a little bit. It wasn't as well known as it is now, but I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel better when I have this crystal. And then I'll be somewhere and I'll see one at a shop or something. I'm like, I don't know why, but I need this particular one. And as I've sort of continued on understanding, you talked about crystalline structure of our DNA and who we are at the core. It makes sense that there's a divine activation or some kind of activation happening that we're not aware of when we use things of the earth, like I use essential oils, I use crystals, I use different things. But because I know crystals are part of your specialty. So what is this unique approach to healing with crystals that you think is so powerful?
Yeah, that we don't use them.
Well, I think people get in their head again. I think people just in their head are like, I can't figure out how this rock is like helping me at all. That's that's the question.
Use the word use, because if you are, so you and I, we just met, and I didn't say to you, Sherry, can you do this for me? Can you heal this in me? And I hear you're good for this. Do this for me. I'm going to use you for this. Versus we looked at each other. We made small talk conversation, but also some energetic conversation was happening. We greeted each other. We talked about how we were drawn to each other. And then we're now creating a conversation together. We're creating a different energetic reality together. And I see the healing potential of the crystals the same way. First of all, they have been around for much longer than us. They're the building blocks of the universe and the multiverse. So that means they hold immense wisdom. And if you think about the, again, I'm going to mention another myth, the myth of Indra. It's an Indian goddess who, at the highest mountain of India, throws this big net, and at the intersection of the leaves, there's a crystal. And each crystal is a being. Each crystal is a person, and we're all interconnected. So the crystals, any rock or mineral you hold in your hand is connected to all the other rocks and minerals in the entire multiverse. And not only that, when you realize you are 65% of more crystals in your bones, you're made up of plasma, which is liquid crystals, your eyes, 95% water crystal. I mean, everything in you, crystalline. Our body, our skin is piezoelectric, so are crystals, which means touch can create an electrical impulse. And we're also, in my personal opinion, again, not through research, but through my own experience, we get activated through intention, through energetics, and so do crystals. So when I hold a crystal, I don't like to say, okay, I hear, there's this little piece of paper they gave me in the store that tell me you just go to the heart, you do this, you do that, versus let's open up a conversation similar to the connection and cultivating a relationship with your inner children. What if you were to cultivate a relationship with any single crystal you hold in your hand? What if you were to not say, what can you do for me today? But what if you were to say, I'd like to connect with this infinite wisdom that's around me. And they're wonderful connectors. Bring to me what it is that I need to hear and receive, and what can we create together today? May it be peace, calmness in your body versus new ideas. You could connect to a lot of number of radio stations, I call them vibrational pathways, because we are all connected. And then it extends. And when you begin to, again, going back to how you treat anything is how you treat everything. If you begin to treat the mineral realm as respectable kin, brothers and sisters and ancestors, and children and mothers and fathers, and treat them the same way you would treat something sacred, then you begin to say, okay, I'm seeing all these people and they're walking crystals around me. I'm looking at this pen, I'm looking at the paper that has, again, DNA in it, like everything. You can begin to communicate in a new and more sacred way.
I love that. I love the practice of treating everything sacred. We're only ever projecting onto others what's inside of us. And so when we find ourselves becoming short with people or impatient, I have to admit, this morning I got a sales call. I don't know whose list I got on, but I was just like, what? How did you get my number? You know, and I'm like, okay, that is just a beautiful person on the other end of that line who was doing a job to put food in there on the table, whatever. And bringing back, as I'm talking to you, I was reminded of that conversation. I'm like, oh, shoot, you know, how you treat one thing is how you treat everything, like you said.
Can I tell you, it directly ties you what you're saying?
Yes.
Can I tell you what I'm learning right now? And
please.
And especially we just came from a visit to, my husband is also Turkish, so we go to Turkey for a month, which is a long time, and then we come back reconnected and also re-traumatized. intense connections always do. But what I've come to realize is anytime I'm talking to someone, I'm not talking to the entirety and the full potential of that person. I'm talking to the nervous system of any number of inner children that is active at that time. So I'm talking
that person. So you're talking to a nervous system
in that
a wounded inner child plethora of energetic.
In that moment, whatever nervous system of usually one particular inner child is coming forward. So I'm talking to the nervous system of a child, however old or young this person is. Mm-hmm. And that in turn activates my nervous system and takes me to a certain age, whatever age that is. And to me, the main thing I can do in any such situation is to just be very gentle with my own nervous system, because we're all connected. Because I'm a crystal, if I stay in that, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but if I'm able to care for that child that's coming up in me in that moment, that in turn affects the whole conversation. That is not to say, I mean, there are so many different situations where you do need boundaries and you do need to protect yourself.
It couldn't be there's safety issues. Yeah,
you do need to speak up. But in a lot of other like normal day-to-day stuff, there's a way you can sort of care for this body, this crystal, this inner child that's gonna help ease how you are in that moment.
Yeah, I love it. So just to kind of wrap up, you've given some really great practical ways, to, how we treat things, how we start to see things, how we see ourselves as like a beautiful crystal that's just here to learn, but holds all this, just this container of wisdom and beauty. And then we have all these energetic wounds. So we really are just these walking paradox kind of beings. But how would you sort of tie this in? If you could just give people a gift, like an energetic gift at this time, and what's happening on the earth. And I think it's so fascinating that you go back and forth to the Middle East and that the healing that needs to happen in those lands. And then, like you said, you get re-traumatized and you bring it back. What do you do? How do you land back into all the stuff we've been talking about and seeing the sacred and yeah, just kind of wrap that up for us. That would be fascinating to me.
I can tell you what I'm doing right now in both a physical sense and as metaphor. So I came back from Turkey. We actually, my whole family, my husband, daughter, and I, we got COVID the next day.
Oh no!
We were in a 2-week healing period, and now we're out of it. So right now, for the last week and a half, I've been going through every closet, every little nook, And this being the Virgo season is helpful, I think.
Yes.
I'm taking things out. I'm looking at them. I'm organizing. I am realizing or rolling with the energy that I have. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. And I'm looking at things, parting with certain things, letting things fall into different categories. So sort of this reorganization thing going on. And I know when I do this, it's usually all about the raw material in me of energy that something wants to be created, wants to be made into material. So a part of me in organizing my closet is organizing all the different things that want to be said and need to be said and done. May it be a writing that I share or a video that I take. So in all this, I think our responsibility at this time is we can no longer live with physical and energetic closed closets. That time is done. That time was of shoving it in, living in the head, assuming you don't have a body, assuming we're not connected, assuming that you can carry on just being the way you are, unloading your emotions on others, unloading your trauma on others. That's done. That, to me, at least, the way I see it, that time is way past. So it's our responsibility as individuals, as healers, to look at all the cupboards. Look at the third chakra. Oh, to the right of the second chakra. What's there? To this little knot on your head. What's hidden there? What's wanting to come out there? You were saying, Sherry, that you began to be drawn to crystals later on. And to me, whenever someone does that, like you're gathering pieces of yourself. Gathering different aspects of yourself. So not only do we need to look at what's here, and then we need to, once we empty, once we clear, once we and live in those places, we need to bring in the sacredness physically and energetically. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I
love it. Well, this is, you and I are recording this right before the Virgo new moon. By the time this airs, will be happening upon a full moon, which I don't know which one. But I'm just, for those of you watching on YouTube, I'm holding up my rose quartz crystal. This is the most beautiful thing that I probably have, just because where I got it in France on a Sacred Mary Magdalene pilgrimage. It was actually in a grotto cave. That's the energy was unlike anything I've ever felt with divine feminine, and just where I feel drawn. When you said that I was drawn, because I was drawn to crystals, I'm finding pieces of myself, or I'm drawing back pieces of myself. I got the chills because this crystal's sitting right over here. And that's how I feel about this rock. It's the color, it's the dimension, it's what it represents. And then I love what you shared about having a relationship with these things of the earth. I've been able to do that with essential oils really easily with the plants that they're sourced from. And I have a whole career path with that. With crystals, I never thought of it that way. I've always looked at them as a tool rather than a friend. So I appreciate that insight. And I also want to just honor what you said about the moons, because of what's happening cosmically. We need to be aware of the energies that are coming in at these different lunar cycles, and know that it is going to have an impact on our crystalline form and on our own little planetary bodies. So I love that you brought that up. Anything else? And then also just add anything else you want to add, and then let's tell people where they can find you online.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, we talk about these things, and I always tell people, like, energetic wounds are complex. And then if you feel like it's too much to go into one closet, too much to go open that one drawer in you, just get help, ask for help. Work with a healer, someone you trust, so that you don't feel like you're going to get overwhelmed with everything
Yeah,
coming
I'm so glad you brought that up. We need somebody to hold space for us when we're going to those scary places sometimes.
Yeah. Most of the time. Some of them you can open by yourself easily, but then with some bigger ones. People can find me. I mean, it's very easy. My website and business name is adropofom, adropofom.com, and it's on social media. A drop of a drop is my name is a drop in Turkish.
Oh.
Om is a sacred seed sound of the universe and symbolizes the vibrational essence of all beings, all crystals, everything in you. So we're all drops of Om swimming in a sea of Om. So take care of your Om.
Ah, I love that. Thank you so much for being on today. This was really enriching for me.
Pleasure. And thanks to everyone who listens.
Thanks for listening. And remember, the power is in your hands. You are a limitless creator when it comes to your own health and well-being. Sometimes things persist within us to teach us lessons, and it's kind of like what we signed up for, if you will. Other times we're here to clear them. I mean, we have to be cleared out and in touch with our inner child and with our higher soul self to be able to do the work we're meant to do in this world. So bridging those two things, our wounded, sensitive self and our strong, empowered, wise self, putting those two parts of ourselves on the same page. As this airs, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City teaching an essential emotions training with 3 of my partners in crime. We kind of composed this essential emotions class, which is kind of a play on the word of essential oils and emotional science. It's really, really excited about that modality that we're bringing to the masses. So message me if you want more information on that. And you can just email me, Cherie@CherieBurton.com. I got to thinking as I wrapped up this episode that a lot of the work that we do with sensory anchoring, multisensory healing is really based in inner child work and just speaking to that part of ourselves that continues to live out our emotional patterns and wounds. So grateful for the tools we have on the earth right now and for the awareness around them so that we can really get to the heart of our ancestral stuff and clear it out backwards and forwards. Thanks again for listening and hope you have a beautiful week. We'll talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.